The measurement we'll be needing for this skirt is just the length, the waist, and the hip measurement. So our skirt is going to have a band. I'm using 2 inches for our band. So when you're measuring, you're going to start from 2 inches like this. The length of the skirt is 18 inches plus 1.5 inches allowance. That's 19.5. You measure 19.5 round, then you roll it out. Please don't forget, you're measuring it with the 2 inches out of the measurement. Then you connect them together. Then your waist, you measure your waist divided by 4. My waist is 24 divided by 4, that's 6 inches. So you mark your 6 inches plus your 1.5 inches allowance. Then you add 1 inch for your dart. That's for the dart allowance. 1 inch. It's just going to be on the waist. 1 inch. So your hip allowance, your hip line rather. The hip is going to be 9 inches or 8 inches. Depends on the size of the person, on the height of the person. But yeah, I'm using 8 inches. So you take out your 2 inches like we did the other time. Then measure your 8. Take out your 2 inches, measure your 8 for your hip line. Then you connect it. Don't forget your 2 inches whenever you are measuring. Then you measure your hip measurement divided by 4, which is 9 inches plus 1.5 allowance. Then you just connect it so that allowance. 1.5 plus 1 inch, that's at the waist. Then for the M, you just measure your hip measurement plus the allowance, then you minus 2 inches. So like now I'm having 10.5, I'm going to minus 2, that's 8.5. So I'm taking 8.5 for my M. Then you read it out. That's how simple it is to cut your short pencil skirt. You just have to use your chalk to make that side not look too pointed. So your 1.5 or plus the 1 inch, that's 1.5 on the hip line minus your hip line minus 2 to get your M. After cutting the front piece, then you cut the back piece. You just take out your zip allowance like this. I just used pin to pin it down. Then place the front piece on the back piece. Then just cut out the same exact measurements. I cut it out. Now I want to get our dart. So you get the midpoint, that's your nipple to nipple measurement. That's what you're going to use to measure this part. This I'm using 3.5 inches. So you mark your 3.5, then notch it. You notch your 3.5. Then that 1 inch that we took at the waist allowance, but that's what we're going to use now. You measure 0.5 on the both sides of that notched part. 0.5, that's 1 inches. 1 inch. Then you measure 5 inches down. Then roll out your dart. This is how your dart should look like when you get to that part. So the 1 inch we took the other time on the waistline, this is where we're going to implement that 1 inch. So you put on both sides, front and back. Then you don't want the front part of your skirt to be the same with the back part. The front part is meant to be lower. So you just come to the edge there and take like 1.25 inch or 1 inch. Sorry, 1/2 inch or 1 inch. Then you use your curve ruler to curve it like this. Not too low, just something moderate. Then you cut it out. It's going to have that curve. Then just mark out your dart that we cut out. Mark it out. It's still the same thing. So your back piece, notch out the zip allowance.